Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Damn, I just got the PI report. This is the fourth investigation in as many years. Jason Thomas, PI, had just done this one. I had used 4 different PI firms in the last 4 years, using random cities, random times of the year, etc., thinking that my wife and her lover had fooled the previous ones, but this new investigator would find their cheating. I just got off the phone with Mr. Thomas. He told me that his people here and his associates in Dallas had surveyed both my wife Molly and John Decker for a week, both when they were at their office the first 4 days of the week, and in Dallas where they both attended a work seminar for 3 days. My wife Molly was the administrative assistant to John Decker, CEO of a fully owned subsidiary of a major international company. As admin assistant, she generally traveled with him, and he traveled a lot. Mr. Thomas said he would send a written report, but in general he found. For the 4 days locally, before their trip to Dallas, they were followed and observed. They had lunch together all 4 days, then immediately returned to work. On the second day, the two of them stopped at a local bar after work. Each of them had 2 drinks, then each went to their respective home. Their spouses were home when they got there, and we broke off surveillance, assuming the spouses would be aware of their activities until the next morning. On the other 3 days, they both went directly home from work, and their spouses were there when they arrived. The Dallas trip was slightly more interesting, but not much. Each of the 3 days they attended the work seminar as they should have. They ate dinner together each night, and each night they went out dancing. After about an hour of dancing and drinks, they went to their respective hotel rooms and didn't come out until morning. Their 2 rooms were separated by 10 rooms, so there was no connecting door between rooms. A camera pointed down the hall showed that each night neither left their room until the next morning. The only thing that was at all suspicious was their dancing. My agent described it as looking like 2 people in love. There was no inappropriate touching, but certainly a closeness, and he usually had his arm around her all the way back to their table. They were followed to the airport, and the agent made sure that they boarded, and that the airplane did in fact leave for home. For PI reports at random dates over the last 4 years have found basically the same information, nothing. Molly and I are both 36 and have been married for 15 years. We were exclusive for the last 3 years of college and married shortly after graduation. Molly is a doll, not beautiful, but would be considered pixie cute, with a fantastic 5 feet 6 inches body. She is very outgoing, and people enjoy having her around. Her boss, John Decker, is about my size, 6 feet 1 inch, 190 pounds, but if it was between the two of us, John would get the attention of all the girls. He is quite an attractive man. I have talked to Molly a few times about her apparent closeness with John Decker. The first few times she said there was nothing between them except work. She promised that she would never fool around behind my back, and even offered to take a lie detector test anytime I wanted. She said he was just a coworker and a good friend. The last time we talked about it, she referred to him as a special friend. I guess he got a promotion. Molly and I have gone out for dinner and dancing a few times with John and his wife Gail. John and Molly talk to each other and dance with each other much more than they do with their spouses. One time when John and Molly went out on the dance floor, I noticed Gail gave them a raised eyebrow as if saying, "What, again?" I guess she notices their closeness also. I have talked to Molly about finding another job, just for me, just because I am very jealous of her being so close to John. She says that's silly, she loves her job, and tells me again that she would never go behind my back, and that she would be willing to take a lie detector test. I have spent thousands of dollars with private investigators over 4 years and found nothing. Last night Molly was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked by. In a more serious tone than usual she said, "Tom, can I talk to you for a minute?" When I sat down she said, "John and Gail have invited us to their lake house for the weekend. I told them I was sure we would love to go, but I would have to check with you. I think it would be great, okay with you?" The first thing that crossed my mind is 5 days a week at work isn't enough. Now you want to be with him on the weekend too. I tried, but couldn't think of a reason not to go. With obvious displeasure I said okay. Friday afternoon Molly and I packed the car and headed to John and Gail's lake house. We had a map to show how to get there, but I tried to surprise her by asking, "Have you been there before?" She said she hadn't been, but I'm not sure I believed her. We drove for about 50 miles, finally coming to the lake at about 4 o'clock. It took a while to find their house, but when we finally did, there were 4 people on the front porch waiting for us. The only one I knew was John. I assumed Gail was inside. In addition to John, the welcoming committee consisted of a very large, well-built man, a middle-aged woman that appeared to be his wife, and an extremely attractive 20-something woman. She had long red hair, and I would consider her to be beautiful. Everyone besides her had on shorts and t-shirt. She had on a skimpy bikini. We parked and headed for the porch. After we were introduced to everyone, I asked John where Gail was. He said she wasn't there, but gave no explanation as to why. It seemed a little strange that we came to visit John and Gail wasn't there. Probably because I had wondered for years about Molly and John's relationship, my spidey senses started getting active. Was John fooling around with this beautiful young woman? Did Gail find out? What does Molly know about this young lady? Molly didn't seem at all surprised to see her here. Molly and I were shown to our room. We dropped the small amount of luggage we brought, then joined the others in the great room. The building and the interior were very rustic and very large. I guess there were 5 bedrooms and as many baths. The very large man introduced as Larry something, asked if I would like a beer. I said sure, and he motioned for me to follow him to the kitchen. He seemed very intent on getting me into a one-on-one conversation, so I talked to him for 10 to 15 minutes. He was a very pleasant man, but after a while I was ready to join the others. Strangely, as we came back into the great room, he loudly announced, "We're back." Even stranger, Molly and John were off in a corner, and I would swear they were surprised and just separating from a lover's hug. Both of them were red-faced and appeared to be stepping away from each other. I didn't like any part of what I'd seen so far. Gail's not here. Larry seemed to want to keep me talking in the kitchen. Who is the young gorgeous girl? Molly seems to have been in an embrace with John. I had to ask Molly what the hell was going on, so I started walking back to the kitchen and motioned for Molly to follow me. She had to see that I was at least confused and probably quite upset. Instead of following me into the kitchen, Molly stopped and asked John if there was someplace private that Molly and I could talk. No one seemed at all surprised at this request. My spidey senses were flaming at this point. John pointed out a room we could use, and Molly and I went in and closed the door. Molly, what in the hell is going on? She had the expression of finally having to confront something that she was dreading talking about. Tom, I haven't been totally honest with you about this weekend, but please let me explain everything without interrupting. When I'm finished, I'll answer any question you have, and I'm sure you'll have many. First of all, Gail decided not to come this weekend. Gail, John, and I have had several meetings over lunch and dinner, planning this weekend. When I'm finished, I think you will see why you weren't invited to these meetings. Everything is basically Gail's idea, with some input from both John and I. John has accepted a promotion which will require a move to England. He and Gail will be moving in 2 weeks. His replacement will be a woman from the Cleveland office. I'm sure that John leaving and a female replacement will please you. There are 3 things that I need to tell you about John and me. First of all, as I have always told you, John and I have never had an affair. We have never been in the same bed together. Secondly, and this is the hardest thing that I have ever had to tell you, I love you as much now as I ever have, but I also am in love with John. Let me emphasize, I didn't just say I love John. I said that I am in love with John. I couldn't be quiet any longer. I jumped to my feet and screamed. I can't believe it. You brought me to that asshole's house to tell me you're leaving me for that same asshole. I'm out of here. You can find your own way home. Oh, that's right. We don't have a home anymore. You're off to England with the asshole. I started to the door as Molly grabbed my arm and yelled, "Please, Tom, that is not at all what I said. Please sit down and let me finish. I love you, and I'm not leaving you. Ever, ever. You're my husband, and I will be with you until death do us part." I calmed just slightly and sat back down. Let me reiterate, everything is basically Gail's idea. I guess the next thing I should do, before continuing with why we are here this weekend, is tell you who the other people are and why they are here. The nice man that you talked to in the kitchen is Larry. He is head of security at our company and is only here to make sure everyone is happy. I broke in, so he is here to keep me in line, right? Molly didn't answer, just continued with introductions of the other people. Jackie, the beautiful girl, is here for you, if you so desire. She is a sweetheart, and also a high-end escort. The middle-aged lady Janet is actually Larry's wife, and also a great cook. A light suddenly went on in my head. The rest of this charade all of a sudden became quite clear. I could see exactly what Molly, John, and Gail had planned. Molly knew that John would be out of her life after this weekend. The 2 lovers, John and Molly, will take the weekend to finally be together as lovers. After that, John and his wife Gail will be off on their adventure in England. On Sunday, after I watch my wife make love to someone else all weekend, she and I will hold hands as we skip merrily to our car and live happily ever after. Is this woman crazy? They brought Larry in to make sure I don't kill John, or just happen to drown my unfaithful wife. Jackie is here to offer me companionship, with the same goal as Larry, but a little different approach. All of this to give John and Molly a weekend of love and sex. All right, Molly, I don't agree with any of this bullshit. Where the hell is Gail? You say this is all her idea. Where the hell is she? She decided that for her emotional well-being, it would be best for her not be here. In return for the weekend, John has signed a post-nuptial agreement that if he and I have contact of any kind at any time in the future, John would get nothing in a divorce. Gail gets 100% of the assets. I have signed a similar paper for you. Both papers begin when John and Gail leave for England. Since John and I work together, both papers also stipulate no sexual or romantic contact between this Sunday evening and when they leave for England. Tom, I will truly be all yours after this weekend. And I swear to spend the rest of my life making up for the hurt I'm causing you now. Why am I here, when Gail isn't? Easy, there is no way that you would agree to let me come to John's lake house without you. Same reason you weren't invited to the planning luncheons. You would have just said, hell no, to everything. And what if I just say no to the whole goddamn thing now, and ask you to either join me for an immediate trip back home, or you stay here with John, and say goodbye to our marriage? Tom, it's not like that. Please understand that although you are my lifelong soulmate, I need this weekend with John for closure. Also, Gail is expecting a call from you. Since this is primarily her idea, she will explain everything to you. Her number is on the kitchen counter. Molly, I'm asking you one more time not to do this. Molly walked to me and gave a passionate kiss on my lips, then said, it'll be okay, you'll see. Molly walked out of the room and took John by the hand as they disappeared from view. Larry kept his eye on me for the rest of the evening and constantly stayed between me and John. I thought seriously about just leaving and filing for divorce, but I had to know what this is all about and how far it would go. I found Jackie and told her, she is tempting, but I'm not going to help Molly shatter our wedding vows. Molly will have to do that all by herself. I told Jackie that, as far as I was concerned, she could go home, or if she is curious, she can stay and laugh at all the insanity. The next time I saw the lovers was at dinner. Janet obviously had been told where to seat everybody. John sat at the head of the table, Molly by him. Larry was between me and John with Jackie next to me. Janet, when she wasn't serving, sat across from her husband Larry. I assumed that by now my lovely wife had become an adulteress, thereby making me a cuck. I noticed, probably at John's suggestion, she was not wearing her wedding rings. The only thing I said through the whole meal was not good, as I pointed out her bare finger. After dinner, Jackie put on a beautiful red bikini and went for a swim. I sat by the pool. Then John and Molly came out hand in hand, with swimsuits on. Larry sat by me and tried to start a conversation. It became quite evident that this whole charade had been choreographed. Shortly after everyone was around the pool, Molly came over and sat beside me. She leaned her head on my shoulder and said, I love you, Tom. It'll all work out. We'll talk when we get home. I was thinking this woman is nuts as I quickly got up and walked away, telling her loud enough for all to hear, go to hell. I avoided everyone for the rest of the evening, except Larry, of course. He was always somewhere off in the distance with his eye on me. I liked Larry. Other times we could be friends. I decided to call Gail. Maybe she could shed some light on this train wreck. She must have been expecting me. She answered on the first ring. She must have also added me to her caller ID. With a sad voice she said, how's this whole sad affair going? Are you still at the lake house? Gail, what the hell caused you to come up with this disaster? I don't know about you and John, but this is going to ruin my marriage to Molly. Tom, let me explain my thinking. I admit that I was thinking of my own marriage to John. I didn't give a lot of thought to you and Molly. I think that women can move forward and forgive an affair easier than men can. I know that John deeply loves Molly and has suffered for 4 years with her refusal of sex. She always told him that she wouldn't have a cheap affair behind your back. I offered them a compromise, a weekend of sex and love, in exchange for not contacting each other ever again. I could just see them, thousands of miles apart, but in constant communication. I was afraid of where that might lead. If they ever communicate in the future, in any way, it could financially destroy each of them. I didn't invite you to the planning luncheons because you would just say hell no to everything. Upon entering our bedroom, I discovered, not surprisingly, that the only luggage there was mine. Molly's stuff had been moved, so it was no longer our bedroom, just my bedroom. It made me very sad to think that Molly and John were now in their bedroom. Lying in bed, I kept wondering how Molly could think that after this weekend, she and I could just magically resume our loving relationship. All I could assume is that their 4-year emotional affair, without it being a sexual affair, has them thinking that the world owes them, and everyone will understand their needs. About midnight, Jackie knocked on the door and came in to ask if I was all right. She also inferred that she was still available if needed. I thanked her for the offer and told her my refusal was one of the hardest things I have ever done, but no thanks. She said that her room assignment was originally the same as mine, but that she had found an unassigned room. I couldn't sleep at all, so I went out by the pool. The hot tub was separated from the pool by a 3-foot rock wall, so I found a lounge chair and dragged it next to the hot tub. The sound of the water was soothing, and I eventually fell asleep. I slept for an hour or so, then was awakened by voices approaching the pool. I immediately recognized the voices of the two lovers. They couldn't see me, but I was only 10 feet away, hidden behind the short rock wall. Molly said, "Oh, John, this is so wonderful. I have loved you for so long, and I'm finally able to show you how much I'm going to miss you, but we have 2 days to get in a lifetime of loving. Let's make love in the pool. Get your suit off. I'll get us a couple of drinks." Molly got up and went to the kitchen for drinks. I felt like throwing up. I could see my whole life going to hell because of this asshole. I hated him and hated Molly for the absolute total void that I was feeling. John was out of his suit waiting for Molly when I came up behind him. I yelled loud enough for everyone in the house to hear me. Hey, a-hole. A-hole seemed to have become my nickname for him. As he turned, I kicked him, aiming for his balls, hoping to totally spoil his weekend of screwing my wife. He hadn't fully turned toward me, so I caught him in the lower abdomen. I was barefoot, so if I had been on target and hit the pelvic bone rather than soft abdomen, I probably would have broken a couple of toes. He doubled over and fell backward into the pool. I knew Larry would be out of bed and on his way soon, but I didn't think there would be a physical confrontation with Larry. He might call me a few names, but wouldn't want to face assault charges, and anyway, the damage to his boss had already been done, and Larry wouldn't be looking for revenge. Filed away in my mind was the fact that Molly came running to see if John was hurt, but didn't bother checking on me. I had seen enough. I got my bag, got in my car, and headed home. I did one thing before leaving, though. I took my wedding ring off and left it on the kitchen counter. Molly would maybe understand just how much she had hurt me. I spent the rest of the weekend sitting at home in my recliner, staring at the TV. I really didn't pay much attention to what was on. My mind was busy with pictures of my lovely wife with that asshole John. Since I had been to the lake house and knew the layout, I could picture them in various rooms, embracing with a big smile, kissing as they held each other overlooking the lake, in bed together with him doing things only I should be doing. And her doing things that should be only for me. I wondered what she would say when she came home, if she came home. I really wish she wouldn't come home, but I don't know where else she would go. Sunday evening a car pulled up and stopped in front of my house. It was John and Molly. They sat and held hands and talked for what must have been 15 minutes, occasionally kissing. Finally, he got out with the intention of coming around to open her car door. He apparently had asked Molly to wait and let him come around and open her door, obviously for my benefit. I think he forgot that the human body stiffens up after an injury, then a long ride. He was wincing getting out of his door from the kick I had given him 2 days earlier. He needed to hold on to the 2 car fenders to work his way around to her side. He finally got to her side and opened her car door, looking quite uncomfortable. He helped Molly out of the car. It was more that Molly helped John help Molly out of the car. I was pleased that my parting shot at the lake house obviously had hindered their lovemaking. This was all for my benefit, to show me that he was giving her back to me, after she had stayed with him when she had a choice of him or me at the lake house. They held each other like lovers, not caring what me or the neighbors might think. I had had enough. I opened the front door and took a step toward John. If you aren't out of here in 5 seconds, I'm going to do more than just kick the shit out of you. John limped quickly back to his car and drove away. I walked back in the house and sat in my recliner. Molly hadn't even watched him drive away. She walked in the front door wearing a fake smile. "I'm home, honey." Her attitude seemed so ridiculous, acting like she was just coming home from an evening out with the girls. I just ignored her and turned up the TV. She came over and tried to kiss me, but I pushed her away. The only thing I said to her was, "You're in the guest bedroom from now on. I'm going to a lawyer tomorrow and start paperwork for a legal separation. Eventually one of us will meet someone and want a divorce, but for now we can coexist here. You can be free to replace your lost lover with whoever you want." I went back to watching TV. Molly started sobbing as she went up the steps. In one weekend she had lost her lover and her husband. The very next day I called my lawyer and started the proceedings. That evening when I came back home, I saw Molly walk up to me and tried to kiss me. My initial intention was to punch her in the nose, but I had to control. "I am back, and as I said earlier, I am all yours. So, you are mine now." I looked at her. "Yes," she nodded. "And you will do anything I ask." She nodded, affirming. "Please stop breathing and die," I said and walked away. That night I went in my bedroom and slept. Around midnight she knocked my door. "Tom, please talk to me, let me come in our bedroom." She kept knocking and I was getting pissed off. "Go away. This is not your bedroom. You made your bed with that a-hole and it's better you sleep there. You are no wife of mine. Now get lost." I managed to somehow live through the week. Molly was served at her office and I added a restraining order to it as well. The house that we live in is still under my mother's name, so it was easy to throw her out. She called me multiple times, but every time I just disconnected her calls. I got calls from multiple friends asking what happened. I told them I do not want to talk about it. A few days later, I got a call from an unexpected source. "So, you dumped her?" It was Gail. "Yes, I did. I hope she shows up to your door." "I hope she does. John will be totally screwed if she comes near him ever again. They have signed a post-nup with me. I don't believe in such nonsense. To me they cheated and they are done. And since you were part of it, screw you, which and never call me again. I won't be nice to you next time." I hung up. I was divorced a few months later. I did have to split our money. It's better than being a cock. I never heard from Molly ever again. I never intend to. I did not put myself on the dating market, and I have decided not to do that ever again. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comment section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.